Hello and welcome to this video class in the MOOC How to Succeed in the English B-Level exam. Today we are looking at writing, and I'm going to try and provide you with the key features, the key characteristics of a successful written composition. This is what we are going to be looking at, the differences between spoken and written English. We will look at the writing process, which has three main parts. One step before writing, then while writing a draft, and finally when we have finished revising what we have written. And at the end of the presentation you will have a slide with the references of the authors that are mentioned in this slideshow. Well, let's start then by looking at the differences between spoken and written English. It is not the same, and we should be aware of that, of what's allowed when we are speaking and what's allowed when we are writing, and what is not allowed, which is equally important. For example, when we are speaking, it doesn't really matter if our grammar is not perfect, it's not always correct. But however, when we write, we really have to make an effort to use correct grammar. And that's because spoken English is less structured, or any spoken language. However, written English is much more structured and it has to follow certain rules. When we are speaking, we not necessarily use all the time full sentences. However, when we write, we should use full sentences. We should organize those sentences in paragraphs and use linking words, etc. When we are speaking, contractions are allowed. I can say don't. But when we are writing, well, I'll have to write do not, for example, unless it's an informal context, of course. We are much more informal when we are speaking, the kind of vocabulary that you use, and also we may repeat the same words again and again, or hesitate. However, when we are writing, everything has to be much more formal and measured. Again, in spoken English, we can use slang or spontaneous language. That's not acceptable really in written English. And very important, the last characteristic that I've put in this table, the body language. Yeah? When we are speaking, we have our face and the tone of voice. If we are very upset or we are scared or whatever, yeah, we use our body and the tone of our voice for that. However, we don't have that when we are writing. So it's very important that we use punctuation marks, for example, exclamation marks or question marks or full stops or commas, etc. Now, let's get into it. And how do we write? What's the writing process about? As I said, there are three steps, three different stages: pre-writing, writing, and what we could call post-writing or revising and editing. So before writing, in that pre-write stage, we have to plan. Now, this is quite commonly overlooked, and that's a mistake. If you don't plan what you are going to write, then your writing will be quite poor. Yeah? And then, okay, you get on with it. You write your first draft, but that's not the end of it. You will have to then revise it and edit it. Check your writing, if the grammar is correct, the spelling is correct, the punctuation, and make it better. Yeah, that's the purpose of this third stage. Now, before writing, what do we have to consider? Well, since you are preparing for this B1 level exam, then you will be given instructions for a composition. Now, read carefully. What is the purpose of the composition? What are they asking me to do? Now that seems very simple, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes you go what is called off topic. Yeah, we write about something else that nobody was asking you to write about. Okay? Related to that, what is the topic of the composition? Are they asking me to talk about sports or clothes or the economy? Who knows? How long should it be? Normally they provide you with the number of maximum words that you should use. Or is it a formal or informal piece of writing? Yeah? If they are asking me to write an email, for example, it will be informal, yeah? For example. Now, some tips before writing. You can see three main techniques, if you want to call it like that. You can choose whatever suits you best. For example, it's quite common to make bullet points, yeah, with your main ideas. But some people find that more difficult than just timing themselves to say, okay, I have 5 minutes now to think about the topic and just write non-stop whatever comes to my mind. And then I'll stop, look at it, read it carefully, and then organize whatever I have written. Or I can do what is called brainstorming, just thinking about the topic and writing down any word, any expression, anything that comes to my mind related to that topic. So now that we have all that in our head and on our paper, well, we have to write a draft. And you should consider these aspects that I have listed down. You have to make sure that you cover all the aspects you are asked to write about. Yeah? It's an exam, and they are asking you to write about something, and they are asking you to give certain details. Well, make sure that you don't forget any of them, because then you will lose points, yeah, when marking. Choose what suits the text best, formal or informal style. Also very useful, something that sometimes you forget. Read the instructions carefully, because those instructions contain important information, what is called keywords. Yeah? Take those keywords from the question and make sure that you use them. Also, keep your sentences simple. If you try to make very long and complex sentences, well, it's very likely that you make mistakes. However, if you make them short, then it's probable that you will be more successful. And then organize all those sentences into paragraphs. Usually, you should write 3 paragraphs, one for the introduction, one with the main points, and then the conclusion, or if it's a letter or an email, the farewell, the goodbye. Now, some tips. I have put some sticky notes there on that slide showing you different ideas. For example, types of text that you may come up with in this exam. You may be asked to write an email or a conversation or a story. And you'll have to be careful to choose some key sentences. It's very important how you open your writing and how you close your writing. In the style, keep to the point. Do not wander off writing about something else. No, just keep to what you are being asked to do. And try to use varied vocabulary. If you are describing something and you just say that it's interesting and I was very interested, well, that's a bit poor. Yeah? That was engaging, and it really got me into it, etc. Try to make your vocabulary range as varied, as open, as big as possible. Try to find synonyms, basically. And also important, try to get the reader's attention. If you write something that is interesting, engaging, that really gets you into it, your marks will go up, I'm sure. Very important also to use connectors. If it's an informal piece of writing, then you should use some connectors. If it's story, for example, that you have to write, then you have to use connectors that sequence what's going on, and then, and finally, etc. If you are discussing something, you'll have to contrast ideas, you'll have to use however, but, and you will be asked to give your opinions, yeah? In my opinion, etc. Now, punctuation, again, I have to insist on that because that's a common mistake. If you are asked to write a letter, well, there's certain punctuation that we need to follow. For example, dear and, comma, yeah? And then we start on the following line. Dialogues have hyphens or bullet points, yeah, to mark who's talking. And of course, don't forget your full stops and your commas. So we get to the final stage, revising and editing. Now, when revising, ask yourself, have you read what you have written? Because sometimes we are so concentrated on writing whatever it's in our head, that then we run out of time. So save yourself 5 minutes at the end of the writing to revise what you have written. Could you add something else? Because maybe when you reread what you have written, you realize that there's something missing, that you haven't covered all the aspects that you are asked to cover. Or maybe you've gone to the opposite, to the other end. Maybe you should delete something. Yeah? And very important also, does your composition have a clear structure? Is it in 3 paragraphs, as I told you before? Yeah? And then the editing part is, again, have you used full sentences? Are the spelling, capital letters, and the punctuation correct? And then, if we have checked all that, then we can submit it. And these are a few references that I have used when preparing this presentation. I hope you have enjoyed it and has been useful for you. Thank you.